Hello everyone! Part 2 for Inuka's nightmare is here. Let's see how much truth it hides, shall we? I mean, you know me. Obviously it hides some truth. But no spoilers. Watch the video. It's fun. And I managed to tell the story in just 2 parts. I'm proud of myself, honestly. As always, special thanks to my lovely patrons and all of you who subscribe and watch these videos. You are keeping this channel alive and going. Thank you very much, and I hope you will enjoy. The clouds hung low in the sky as he walked through the street, the silent promise of rain chasing everyone inside and leaving the street empty. Although not entirely empty. A vaguely familiar figure walked ahead of him, barely visible in the surrounding mist that appeared out of nowhere just a second ago. It kept the same pace as him, always staying at the same distance no matter how much he sped up. Or did he just think he was speeding up? He couldn't tell. His mouth opened on its own accord. No! Ah, right. That's why the figure was familiar. Kuguri's step halted with his call, but he didn't turn around. Instead, after a second or two of hesitation, he continued forward into the mist. What's going on? No, wait, please. Then, muffled shouts and yelps sounded from up ahead, strangely hollow and distorted, but there. Panic he couldn't find the source of rose in his chest, his eyes snapping back to Kuguri's now visible form. He had to stop it. Whatever was going to happen, he had to stop it. But no words left his mouth this time. His legs refused to move faster. Almost as if some invisible force froze him in time and place and forced him to be just a spectator. Turn around! Please! Come back here! Something! The ruckus suddenly grew louder, accompanied by an echo of running footsteps. Kuguri stopped and looked in the direction of the sounds when a silent yelp escaped his mouth as something pushed him to the side, right into the road. No! The sharp snaps of bones rattled with his core, the strange wet splatters turning his stomach. And yet, he couldn't look away, his eyes as if tied to the bloody trail being spread by something he couldn't see. And to the crumbled form on the ground that used to be a person just a second ago. A wordless cry tore from his throat, and yet everything stayed eerily silent, as if time itself stopped. No! That couldn't... So wake up. The scene disappeared, replaced by pure darkness. Please. His eyes snapped open, welcomed by a similar darkness. But he could hear his breath now, rapid and strangled, feel the shivers running through his body when the cold bit into his sweaty skin. Feel the hand shaking with his shoulder, and the tiny, rattled voice calling his name. He looked up, finding Kuguri's face hovering above him. Moving on instinct, he reached up and pulled him down to his chest, earning a short, surprised squeal. But that was fine. It meant Kuguri was okay. His hands trembled as he dug his fingers into Kuguri's t-shirt, a choked breath escaping his throat. Sorry. The soft hair tickled on his face as Kuguri shook his head, pressure building behind his eyes when he felt Kuguri hugging him back. It's okay. You were screaming, so I rather woke you up. Thank you. He squeezed a bit tighter, but not too much to not hurt Kuguri again, finding some comfort in the warmth radiating through his body. That was always a good sign. Was it the nightmare again? Inoka only managed to nod, the reminder of the bloody scene closing his throat. He nuzzled into Kugure's hair, breathing in the soft scent of his shampoo while he battled the tears threatening to spill from his eyes. Why does it have to be this of all dreams? Why do I have to watch you die? Why? So? He snapped out of his thoughts, realizing his grip got too tight once again. Sorry, Are you okay? Kugure lifted his head a bit, leaning his chin on Inoka's chest to look at him comfortably. He was confused and scared, Inoka could tell, the sight cracking his heart open. What is it, so? What are you dreaming about that it's scaring you so much? Sighing, Inoka pulled him back under his chin, his voice cracking. Losing you. Losing me? Yeah. You got... He shivered, unable to continue without making his stomach turn. The whole scene replayed in his mind over and over, the same panic he felt in the dream clutching his lungs in its iron grip with the reminder of the invisible something that pushed Kugure into the road. Why can't I ever do anything to stop it? He snapped back into reality when Kugure snuggled closer to him and tightened his embrace a bit, a barely hearable whisper reaching his ears. I'm not going anywhere. That's not something you can influence. Still, he clung to that hope with all 10 fingers, briefly squeezing Kugure in his arms before loosening the grip to not make him uncomfortable in any way, and perhaps give him the option to pull away again. But Kugure stayed as he was, the soft breathing and the reassuring weight on his chest calming Inoka down better than any words. He pressed a light kiss into Kugure's hair before he reluctantly closed his eyes again, praying to all gods to let him sleep without more nightmares. He couldn't watch Kugure die anymore. The morning was strangely quiet in the flat, so much so that even Kugure picked up on it and asked him several times if he was okay. He always smiled and assured him he was indeed completely fine, even though there was hardly anything further from the truth. Absent-mindedly, he pushed the pieces of his breakfast over the plate, the only thing keeping him grounded being the steady sound of the running shower. He couldn't stop thinking about the nightmare, trying to find sense in what he was seeing. It has to be a warning of some sort. It has to be. Something is going to happen. He couldn't recall ever having such a vivid dream, let alone one that would repeat itself, which only solidified his conviction. Yuki would definitely call him paranoid if he told him about it, but he wasn't the one forced to watch their boyfriend getting turned into a bloody viscera while being unable to do anything to prevent it. He glanced up when he heard light footsteps walking towards him, his heart stopping for a second upon noticing Kugure's clothes. Are you going out? Yeah, I need to stop by my agent because of that manuscript I sent him. You didn't say anything about that. Oh, really? Sorry, it had to slip my mind. But it's going to be quick, an hour at most. That's not the issue. Can't you postpone it? Or deal with that over Skype or something? Kugure's brows knitted together in confusion. But why? It really won't be for long. It's just 2 stations by train. That's not the issue. Is it that important you have to go out because of that? So, I have to meet the deadlines. It is important. Not to mention, I can't risk losing an agent right now. Inoka suppressed a flinch, guilt jabbing in his chest when the realization of how he had to sound hit him. Sighing, he got up and reached for his hoodie. Okay, then at least let me come with you. Okay, sure, but why so sudden? Why not? At least I get to move a bit when we didn't go yesterday. Kugure stayed unmoving for a while, a mix of emotions flushing over his face. The cogs were visibly turning in his head, and Inoka quickly started to worry about what conclusion his boyfriend's brain would come to. You know I would never do anything behind your back, right? Mentally kicking himself, Inoka crossed the distance between them and cupped his face, the fear in his eyes breaking his heart. Of course I know that. It's just a work meeting, nothing else, I swear. I know, sorry, I didn't mean to imply... Then why are you suddenly so... like this? He opened his mouth on empty, his lower lip quivering. What's going on? Inoka would gladly bury his head into the nearest surface. He kissed Kugure's forehead, staying close for a moment longer to hopefully make sure his words came across as intended. Considering Kugure's fragile self-esteem, he was acting like a total jerk the last 2 days. And while, in his mind, he had a completely justifiable need to keep his beloved safe, in Kugure's eyes, he had to look completely unreasonable for no reason whatsoever. I'm just worried about you. You never know what can happen, and I don't want you to get hurt, that's all. I don't think you are cheating or anything like that, I swear. I know you wouldn't do that. Taking a shaky breath, Kugure closed his hands around his wrists and looked up, watching him as if looking for any signs of distrust or lies. Inoka led him since he had nothing of that sort to hide, waiting for an answer. Alright, but we need to walk fast. The train leaves in 15 minutes. I'll be quick. Even his fastest wasn't enough, however, as they only had about 5 minutes to get to a train station, usually about a 10-minute way. They walked briskly down the street, avoiding the crowd that flowed around them like a strange river in both directions, making the way more frustrating than it had to be. Inoka clenched his jaw when he almost collided with yet another person who mindlessly walked right in front of him, but all frustration disappeared when he realized they were getting close to the station, which meant they had to walk along a busy road. The bloody scenes flashed through his mind like a movie on fast replay speed, a sudden surge of worry stopping him mid-step. Kugure paused too thanks to their connected hands, turning to him visibly confused. What's wrong? Nothing, let's go this way. He motioned towards one of the side streets that ran mostly parallel with the main one, only with a few more turns. Kugure's eyes darted to the crossroads and then back. But that's much longer. We don't have time. Doesn't matter. Come on. He stopped when Kugure grabbed his wrist. So, the train is leaving soon. We can't go the longer way. Then we can take a later one. There's no later one for the next half an hour. If we don't get on this one, I'll be late. And that guy will survive it for once. Despair mirrored in Kugure's face. He clenched his hand a bit tighter, tugging him in the direction of the train station. So, please, I don't know what's happening, but we have to go. Now. We are not going this way. Then, sorry, I'm going alone. No! Kugure's hiss when he grabbed his arm told him he gripped too harshly, But if that meant he wouldn't go by the road, then so be it. Let go, please. I'm not letting you go that way. Then tell me why. Why are you acting so strange? Because I want to protect you. What's so difficult to understand about that? He froze. Almost every head in their vicinity turned to them, but he didn't care about that. The only thing he saw was the fright flashing in Kuguri's eyes as he flinched. Like an invisible dagger, the sight of his beloved flinching away from him pierced his chest, tearing his heart to pieces. In the almost full year of them dating, he had never raised his voice at Kuguri. He promised himself he would never do that, knowing how much yelling hurt him. And yet, he just did. He let go of his arm, his own hand shaking slightly. Sorry, I didn't mean to. Kuguri backed away from him, rubbing the place where his fingers dug into his skin. Then he averted his eyes and turned away, whispering. We need to hurry up. With that, he headed down the street, leaving Inuoka still frozen in place in the middle of now disinterested crowd. Inuoka wanted to scream. If in despair or to call Kuguri back, he wasn't sure. Perhaps both. But he wouldn't help anything if he did. After all, it was his fault. Not only he made Kuguri insecure again with his behavior, but he also managed to chase him away. While the physical distance wasn't that long yet, he could already feel a wide crevasse forming between them, tearing them apart. He let out a deep sigh and slowly followed after Kuguri, giving him space while keeping an eye on him. Though he wasn't sure if he even had the right to do that. He said we. He's not sending you away. Not yet, anyway. He looked up to take a deep breath, but the air got caught in his throat when he noticed the dark clouds hanging low in the sky as a silent promise of rain. Panicked, he looked at Kuguri now walking a solid distance ahead of him through the crowd, their pace pretty much matching. Oh no, no. He quickly started to make his way through the crowd to get closer, the rational part of him telling him he was being stupid, completely overruled by the lingering fear holding on to him since last night. A sudden ruckus rose somewhere ahead, the yelps and shouts, the words of which he didn't understand, getting closer. Now wait! Kuguri's step halted briefly, but he didn't wait for him and soon continued on. Inuoka clenched his jaw and continued to push through the crowd. While his priority was Kuguri, he glanced towards the growing commotion, his almost 2 meters of height allowing him a clear sight of the people. And the man rushing through the crowd right towards where Kuguri walked. Now! This time, Kuguri turned to him, confusion and sorrow mixing in his face. But before Inuoka could call out a warning, his expression shifted into shock when the stranger bolted into him and pushed him out of the way. No! Tires screeched before the car rushed right by, leaving a trail of smoke and black marks on the road behind. The shocked yelps sounded hollow to Inuoka, his heart thundering in his ears and rapid breaths hissing in his throat. And his trembling hands clutched on the fabric of Kuguri's coat. He looked down, meeting Kuguri's widened eyes mirroring his own surprise, before he pulled him to his chest, squeezing tight. Smaller hands clung to his back, and he could swear he felt Kuguri's heart hammering against his ribs even through the layers of clothing they wore. But that was okay. As long as the heart was beating, everything was all right. So? Nodding, he gently rubbed Kuguri's back, feeling him trembling perhaps even more than he was. "Are you okay?" Instead of an answer, Kugure clung to him even more, but that in itself was enough of an answer. He glanced at the place where he stood just a few seconds ago. The distance was significant, and yet, somehow, he managed to be by Kugure in time to pull him back right before he could get hit. How? He had no idea. His mind was blank since he saw the man pushing Kugure into the traffic. But in the end, he supposed it wasn't the means, but the result that mattered. "Thank you." He blinked, snapped back into the present by the barely hearable whisper. He nuzzled into Kugure's hair, leaving a kiss on his forehead with a quiet hum. "Don't mention it." He bit his lip uncertainly, pulling away a bit to cup Kugure's cheek. "Let's get you home. The meeting can wait." Kugure nodded jerkily before looking over his shoulder at the road, a shiver running through his body as he hid deeper into Inuoka's arms. "Okay." Kugure's hands were still trembling, even when he was already hugging the big mug with tea Inuoka made for them, his motions slow and jerky, and eyes still mostly fixed ahead of him. Though Inuoka doubted he looked much better. He swallowed the "how do you feel" question and sat next to Kugure on the couch, his heart aching when Kugure slumped into his arms. "It's okay now." "I know, but it was so close." "Yeah, tell me about it. I can't believe how lucky we got." Kugure shivered. "I swear I felt the car brushing against my coat. I thought Shh, it's okay now. You're safe. But only thanks to you." He looked up, the fear Inuoka would much rather not be familiar with flashing in his eyes. "I'm sorry." Shaking his head, Inuoka hugged him again, gently running his fingers through the soft, light hair. "Don't. You did nothing wrong. I was being overbearing without telling you why and snapped at you for no reason. I'm so sorry, love." Kugure looked like he wanted to protest, but before he could open his mouth, Inuoka preventively silenced him with a kiss, then with a few more, suddenly unable to hold back. Fortunately, it didn't seem like Kugure minded that and even leaned into the kiss, only tapping on Inuoka's thigh when he needed to catch his breath. Panting a bit himself, Inuoka cupped his cheeks and stole one more quick kiss from his lips before leaning their foreheads together. "But not a word to Yuki. We would never hear the end of it." Kugure let out a breathless chuckle, covering Inuoka's hands with his. "You'll be the one to let it slip. You can't keep a secret. Watch me this time." He curled his fingers more into Kugure's hair, a sudden urge to make sure he was really there, alive and breathing, taking over his mind. Kugure seemed to understand and snuggled back to his chest, squeezing his hand. Inuoka's heart stuttered, relief and happiness washing over him like a giant wave. Everything was all right. No one was going anywhere. Not even with death. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I definitely enjoyed writing from Inuoka's point of view, for once. As I said, I like to write from the perspective of the stray cats characters, but yeah, sometimes I should probably venture beyond that and write from the POV of other characters. I mean, it was still pretty Kugure-centered, but not as much as I usually do, so I have to pat myself on the back for this one. And for those of you who are expecting more of the other character-centered stories, it's good news, I suppose. So yeah, I will try my best to do that. Not sure how it's going to be with Terusho and Otana, because yeah, that whole mess is Dasho-centered. That's not going to get better. Sorry about that. If you have any requests or ideas, the request form is linked in the video description. See you next time.